dear friends and colleagues. Sometimes we find ourselves in situations when it is extremely difficult to understand a speaker. Maybe because the accent is so heavy, or sometimes because of the terminology or the speech style. In all those circumstances, for difficult that it may be to understand, we can overcome the problem by studying and by practicing. Research is also extremely important. Also, the fact that we have a teammate helps quite a bit because these kind of situations can be solved, if not beforehand, at least while we are working in the booth. But there are some circumstances that make this a little bit more difficult. And here I am really not talking about conference interpreting, where usually interpreters show up well prepared and the team works good together. I am referring to court interpreting. In court interpreting, sometimes it is difficult to interpret also because of the speech style, terminology, or because of the accent of the speakers. Many times, especially in criminal cases that involve witnesses that have very little education, it is difficult for the interpreter to really make sense of what's been said by the witness. In those situations, you really need to be on your toes and you can rely on the help of your companion, not in the booth but in the team that is interpreting the trial or the hearing. That is all understandable. I have a problem, however, with those situations when we go beyond this and we have interpreters that are constantly interrupting and disturbing for that reason a court proceeding. Sometimes it is interpreter's fault because the interpreter shows up ill prepared or the interpreter lacks self-confidence. But I also acknowledge the fact that in many other occasions this is due to improper instruction, training, and teaching those interpreters have gone through because they have been told that they can basically interrupt the proceeding as often as they feel like they need to because they didn't hear what happened, because they didn't understand what's going on, or just because. This is not really the truth. What we have here is a bunch of colleagues who believe that when they show up for a trial or a hearing, they are the stars of the show. And nothing could be farther from the truth. The star of the show are the parties and their attorneys. We are just part of a very important, if you will, but of a supporting cast. Interpreters are not supposed to be constantly interrupting the proceedings. Of course, if you cannot hear because the speaker is speaking away from the microphone, or maybe because there is some background noise, or yes, sometimes because the attorneys are speaking way too fast because they are reading from a document, it is okay to interrupt the proceedings and ask for the speaker to speak into the microphone or for the attorney to slow down. I understand also that for my colleagues who work in municipal and state level courts, this is extremely difficult because the trial is not the star of the place. There are so many other things going on. You have secretaries typing, you have printers printing, you have people going in and out of the courtroom and chatting in the back, and you have really express proceedings where hearings happen just one after another. Everybody's in a hurry, and yes, it's extremely hard for the interpreter to hear what's going on. But for the most part, during a trial, and usually this is the general rule in federal courts in the United States, and I guess elsewhere as well, interpreters should show up prepared with the terminology, with the knowledge of the case, with the speech style of the attorneys, so they can really do a good job. To me, it's really disrupting also and embarrassing, frankly, and denotes lack of professionalism to be interrupting constantly the proceedings and getting everybody to lose their concentration on what they are there to do. I usually don't like to stop a proceeding unless it's absolutely necessary, but I have found myself working with people that do it all the time. Let's go one step ahead. There are some times when interpreters stop the proceeding, not because they couldn't hear what the speaker said, not because the speaker is speaking way too fast, but they ask for a repetition, or even worse, they ask for an explanation as the interpreter, because, as they say, the interpreter did not understand the attorney's question. To me, that really has no excuse. If we are professionals, we have an obligation to study the case. So when an attorney asks a question, even though it is a legal question, the interpreter is obligated to know what to do and how to interpret. When I go and interpret a trial, even the times, although they are rare that I interpret for the courthouse, I am always very aware of the witnesses that are going to testify, the proofs that are going to be submitted for the trial, and I always make sure that I find out what is the theory of the plaintiffs or the theory of the defense in the case of criminal cases, so that I am always aware of what's going on. Interpreters have to follow the case. They have to understand the legal intricacies of the case so that they don't have to ask for an explanation. To me, it's just unacceptable that an interpreter is stopping a case and requesting that an attorney explain what it is that he or she was trying to ask the witness or was trying to convey to a judge or a jury. That is just not professional work. So I encourage everybody to please study the case, research your legal terminology, and please read the documents, read the file, talk to the attorneys, learn what is the legal theory that they are going to invoke and follow during the hearing or the trial, and do a good professional job. At least that is my opinion. Thank you.